So, all right, let me back all the way out of this rabbit hole. So, you've got you're launching what is essentially a new venture.
Mhm.
It is, I think, would you agree, the culmination of your growth as a person and your growth professionally? If you look out a year or two or three, and things really worked out, um, to above your expectations, what does
Mhm.
shaping wealth look like?
So, I appreciate the question. I've actually not given that a ton of thought. I've been mostly heads down over the last few months since I started this kind of creating content or updating content that I think can fit into a learning and coaching and content platform with a bunch of different audiences. I think the positive vision, I'm not a big kind of 5-year plan kind of guy. But I think the positive vision is to is to tap into what appears to be a widespread interest in wellness overall, of which financial wellness is becoming an increasingly legitimate piece. So if you just Google what is wellness, you'll come up with like 100 different versions of it. And some of them are, oh, here's a 4-part model or a 12-part model. And there's physical and emotional and spiritual and environmental and a whole bunch of things. And one thing I noticed in its broad absence was financial wellness. When at the same time we know from so many different directions that money is an inescapable issue or topic in every dimension of life across every stage of life. I think because of the success of behavioral finance now transforming into that applied, sort of dimension, more and more organizations and the individuals within them are open to talking about not only just making better decisions on saving and spending and investing, but really coming to terms with how money figures into a meaningful life. Success for me, I think, is creating just really good and engaging and even fun content for people to engage with in a variety of different ways. There's a whole execution piece to this, but really good stuff that people can engage with that helps them level set, maybe turns down the noise, this issue of decision fatigue, choice overload. Um, I'd like to think that what I'm creating might be able to help a lot of people if I can do it in the right way at scale. I mean, I'll share with you. I mean, it's a bit of a sidebar, but it's an important story for me. I gave a talk when I was at this investment firm, Virtus. I had a great experience traveling the country, meeting with financial advisors and their clients, and I did a lot of client appreciation events. And there was one firm on the West Coast, a very big financial planning firm, and they do an annual client appreciation event with 600 people, and they asked me to be the keynote speaker. That's a big room. I was nervous, but it was great. For years I've given this talk called "Diversification Means Always Having to Say You're Sorry,"
I use
and
that all
it's
the time without
yeah, yeah, it's all right. It's my gift to the world. Um, I I position it very much as what I call validate and then elevate. Point out that money is hard. It's really hard for a bunch of reasons, some of which we've already talked about. But then, hey, how can we do a little bit better? Not nail a bullseye every time, but how can we do a little bit better? So 600 people, average age in the room is probably 65, 68, mostly retirees. Gentleman comes up to me afterwards and shakes my hand, says, I really enjoyed that. And he said, and I wish I remembered the exact quote, but he basically said to me, I really, he shook my hand. He said, thanks. He was going to walk away, and he turned back to me. He said, I'm really grateful for the things that you said. I felt like I was the only one who worried about those things, but maybe I'm not. And I'm like, fuck, that's awesome. And I think to myself, I still get goosebumps when I tell the story now. It's like, I connected with this guy, like, and you know, like, that was it. And he walked away, and I was like, sir, thank you so much. Like, little does he know, I'm telling this story a few years later. But it's like, I don't even need to know, like, who totally gets it and jives. It's not like I'm not looking for, 5-star reviews on Amazon or anything. It's, can I put some stuff into the world that really makes a difference in people's lives?
Yeah, no, I agree. And presumably this will also be offered to financial advisors. So you're hoping to connect to
Yeah.
clients through financial advisors.
Yeah. So it's sort of fluid thinking, but I've got sort of two categories. That, or two general audiences, with, the big asterisk that the content is more or less the same. It's just, I think, going to be maybe packaged and delivered a little bit differently. The spirit of all of it is, what is funded contentment and how do we achieve it? Boom. Easy to say. There's one world, and the world that I mostly live in, the world that you're connected to, of wealth management and investment management. And, in the US alone, there's upwards of more than 300,000 financial advisors, and globally, a lot more. But it's, biggest and most mature in the US, I would say, especially people who have moved beyond the brokerage model, which you still, I think, disproportionately see a lot of in Asia and Europe. But leaving that aside, um, I know that what I'm building right now is sort of a coaching the coaches program, to the extent that the industry has gone through multiple phases in the last 40 to 50 years, which I would call brokerage, allocating and investing, planning. I think the next stage is coaching, and coaching is not the same as financial therapy. It's just helping people appreciate, where money fits into a bigger picture in their life. It's just not about, okay, I'm going to allocate, we're going to set up a budget for you, and we're going to allocate to these funds. And, that's good. I mean, it to me, it's necessary, but not sufficient for advisors to provide that. Not sufficient because we're already seeing so many lower cost entrants into the market, such as the nature of capitalist industries, that can put together great portfolios and a very clean, easy to follow plan, or at least easy to understand plan, for basis points versus hundreds of basis points for the advisor who puts together all of it. To the extent that I really believe that there's a coaching dimension to the advice business that has barely been tapped, I want to bring a lot of that very powerful but super practical insight into the advice business at two levels. One is advisor development and working with firms to help train their advisors. And then there's a second level that I'll just call client engagement. And in some cases, it'll be, I coach the coaches and then they work with their clients. And in other cases, go give a keynote address to a group of 600 regular folks. And I enjoy them both. That advisory bucket is one thing, and then the second bucket I'll just call corporate or organizational. Because this notion of financial wellness seems to be legit, it's been more legitimate over the last few years, and then in the context of the pandemic, the interest, just given the hardship that so many are going through, I think organizations and corporations are only going to ramp up their interest in, whether it's financial wellness, financial literacy, financial education, going beyond just your 401k plan sponsor rep coming and giving you a 20-minute how to fill out a box on a form, something a lot more robust. I've already seen, just not even advertising, not just being in the world, like a number of groups who are like, we have 100 millennial employees at this tech company. Can you talk to them about how to get started? Or, we have a bunch of commission-based salespeople and they're doing well now, but man, world's cyclical and you never know. And some of them live paycheck to paycheck because it is commission-based as distinct from kind of flat salary. Can you talk about financial planning and financial wellness for those groups? And then just standard, within corporate HR, structures, there
The
seems to be
corporate
an interest.
model actually seems like a really interesting. I actually hadn't considered it, but um, I mean that model right now is just so broken. It's there's so
How do
much
you mean?
opportunity. Well,
What do
you've
you
got
mean?
there's everything is default options with no connection between the savings or what's deducted from paychecks and going into IRAs and 401ks
Mhm.
and the ultimate goals that those funds serve, right? So
Yeah.
how do people make decisions about what they should own, their asset allocation, how do they stick to it? I mean,
Yeah.
in Canada, and I think it's true in the US, it is extremely common for people to put money into the 401ks, but it doesn't stay there. The second they're able to take it out,
Mhm.
they do that. They take it out to buy a home or buy a car or go on vacation or what have you. And I can't help but think that so much of that is just a disconnection between um, the practical objectives, the purpose of those funds, and the need for now, right? The sort of
Yeah.
domination of now and consumption in the now.
Yeah.
And so I think any program that an employee could go through to walk them through the process of what is this money for? Why are we deducting it? Why is it going into these funds? Or how can you do a better job of connecting your purpose with your asset allocation and what setting expectations?
Yeah.
I think would just be of enormous value and scales tremendously.
Yeah. Thank you. Um, I'll be hiring a marketing director at some point, and consider yourself on the list of candidates.